Association says doctors mustn't allow their personal beliefs to influence their decisions. If a doctor disapproves of abortions, he or she should refer their patient to another GP. At some Brook advisory centres in London, they're now telling women they can't help them find an abortion. This week, St Stephen's Hospital told Brook they could take no more referrals until July. A few months ago, one woman, in despair, tried to carry out her own abortion.
This is something that one saw before abortion became legalized in this country. And it was very disturbing to feel that someone had been driven to this desperation these days. I think the problem is that, you know, I really don't know where people who say, oh, it's so easy to get an abortion, get that idea from.
In some areas, the NHS provides less than a quarter of all abortions. There's now growing concern that if that trend continues, women like this will have no option but to pay or have an unwanted child.
Abroad now, talks aimed at ending the bloodshed in South Africa's black townships have started in Pretoria. President de Klerk is meeting the leaders of a number of the country's black political movements, although the ANC has refused to take part. The conference began after more deaths in the townships. At least 8 people died after gunmen opened fire in a beer hall in Sebokeng near Johannesburg. From South Africa, James Robbins.
The government summit on violence emphasises the deep divisions threatening future non-racial democracy. Inkatha leaders, including Zulu King Goodwill, are here, but the hall was less than half full. Church leaders and the ANC refused to attend because they say a gathering organised by President de Klerk cannot be balanced and fair.
It is ironical that the absentees include those in particular who are forever accusing the government of not doing enough to terminate violence and intimidation.
The fact that President de Klerk himself opened this conference confirms the ANC in its opposition. Nelson Mandela insists the government is one of the belligerents in the township violence and therefore cannot act as referee. 900 miles away in Cape Town, Nelson Mandela was visiting ANC prisoners in hospital after 24 days on hunger strike, men demanding their immediate release as political prisoners. Mr. Mandela stressed that he would go to a peace conference, but only one convened by a third party, possibly the churches. As the argument continues, so does the killing. Gunmen burst into this beer hall in Sebokeng, spraying random automatic fire. At least 8 people were killed. Just the latest effort to maximise terror and division as the enemies of peaceful change. James Robbins, BBC News, Pretoria.
The Ministry of Defence has confirmed that 2 bodies have been found in northeastern Iraq by Royal Marines searching for a missing BBC film crew. Nick Della Casa, his wife Rosanna and Charles Maxwell went to the area to film the plight of the Kurdish refugees. The bodies have not yet been identified, will be flown back to Britain, and the search is continuing. The BBC says it's seriously concerned by the news. The RSPCA is trying to find new homes for more than 400 beagles bred for scientific experiments. The company, which ran the kennels in Worcestershire, where the dogs lived, has gone into liquidation. Last year, the owners were fined after 79 beagles suffocated on board a ferry bound for Sweden.
It's the biggest such rescue operation ever mounted by the RSPCA. These were the first of 400 factory-farmed beagles to be taken away. Bred for experiments, they have never seen daylight nor known human affection.
These animals have been factory farmed in barren concrete environments. They've never seen sunlight, they've never felt warm breeze on their nose, they've never rolled around on the grass or chased a stick. Today, that new life begins for them.
The owners of Perrycroft Kennels, Alpha Sirius, were fined £11,000 last year after 79 beagle puppies died on a ferry to Sweden. The RSPCA say that their business started to go downhill from that point. The RSPCA is appealing for homes for the dogs. Each prospective owner will be vetted to make sure they're suitable, just as the dogs are being vetted for physical health.
They are very subdued. They're really showing no reaction at all to their surroundings. It's going to take a lot of patience, a lot of time, a lot of love to bring these back into what a normal, healthy, happy dog should be.
In a week when the owners of dangerous dogs have been in the news, the RSPCA say the closure of Perrycroft is good news not just for Britain's dog lovers, but for all people concerned about animal welfare.
England have won the first one-day international against the West Indies at Edgbaston. But the victory celebrations were dampened by a hamstring injury to Ian Botham. It could keep him out of the next one-day match. In a close finish, England overtook the West Indies total of 173 to win by just 1 wicket.
Yesterday's hero intent on completing an English victory today. But instead, Ian Botham was to make headlines for the wrong reason. With England seemingly on course for victory, Botham answered Atherton's call for a quick single, but completed the run in obvious pain. The verdict was a pulled hamstring, which must affect Botham's chances of a test recall. He batted on today for just 1 ball. Out LBW to Walsh, a disappointing end to such a promising comeback. Meanwhile, Atherton's patience was rewarded when he reached the only individual half-century of the match. His continued presence was essential to England's chance of victory, a chance which was becoming slimmer as wickets tumbled at the other end. Walsh accounted for Pringle, whose dismissal was quickly followed by those of Russell and De Freitas. And when Lewis went, England had slumped to 152 for 9, still 22 runs short of victory. But last man Richard Illingworth showed admirable coolness on his international debut, helping Atherton to edge England closer to their target. Then, with the West Indian pace attack exhausted, Illingworth hit the winning runs, a boundary off Hooper, to guide England to an unlikely 1-wicket victory.
Duncan Jones. And now back to today's main news, the state funeral of the former Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. While we've been on the air, the funeral ceremony has reached its climax with the lighting of the funeral pyre. Brian Hanrahan's been following events.
The rites at the funeral pyre were performed by Rajiv Gandhi's only son, Rahul. They're intended to ease the passage of the soul from the body, and he was assisted by a Hindu priest. But even as the rites were being completed, the politics were beginning. The Election Commission is coming under pressure from Congress to bring forward voting in the delayed general election. The Congress wants to take maximum advantage of the sympathy vote while the memory of the funeral is still fresh. For a reluctant politician, even Rajiv Gandhi's death is political.
Consigned to flames, this the final and inevitable...
Brian Hanrahan reporting. And that's all this Friday lunchtime from the BBC's 1 o'clock news. Good afternoon.
Tomorrow afternoon, a special programme assesses the career of Rajiv Gandhi, the effect of his death on the world's largest democracy, and the future for India without a Gandhi at the helm. India after Gandhi, tomorrow at 2:45 on BBC Two.
Good afternoon. I normally have a bit of a holiday at this time of the year. The weather usually turns out pretty good. If I'd been so lucky this year, then I think I'd be well pleased with this weather forecast. We've high pressure to the southwest of the British Isles, a good deal of dry weather, bright weather, some sunshine, but not necessarily sunshine for everywhere, because this front has been given a lot of thick cloud. It's also been given some rain as well. And it's never likely to be too far away from this east coast, and then another front edging into northwestern Scotland, perhaps bringing some thicker cloud and some light rain there. But as the area of high pressure pushes away northwards towards Iceland, this area of low pressure will be pushing towards the British Isles, and then we start to feed in these fairly strengthening northeasterly winds. So once again, it's going to start feeling cold along that eastern coast. Now, there's been some rain around today despite that area of high pressure. Here we can see the last of the rain scuttling away through East Anglia and Kent. But it doesn't necessarily mean to say everywhere is going to be dry, because the thicker cloud is still likely to give some drizzle around some of the coast. Still the odd spot here in the east and some up this western coast of Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. Quite a bit of low cloud and fog drifting down through the Irish Sea onto these Welsh coasts. But lots of sunshine down in the southwest, and the cloud is breaking up in many parts of northern England and Scotland. So that I think by this afternoon most places will be bright. We'll have seen some sunshine, except the duller parts of the southeast and the extreme north and northwest. The best temperatures, they'll be down in the sunny parts of the southwest, South Wales as high as 23, also in some parts of southern Ireland. But where you keep the thicker cloud, then it's going to feel a little bit on the cold side, but at least the winds will be fairly light. Tomorrow we don't see an awful lot of change, a lot of bright weather, sunny weather around too, quite warm in parts of the south, still a thick cloud, mist and fog in the west, and some thick cloud near this east coast as well. On Sunday, very little difference. But as we go into the bank holiday Monday, then we'll find it turning much cooler along this eastern coast. But most places still bright with some sunshine. That's it from me. Good afternoon to you.
Friday night on 1, and Edwina Curry and Clive James join Wogan. Then at 7:30, David's definitely not environmentally friendly.
What do you do?
I bought an aerosol deodorant. I go buy one every day, and I'm having the car converted back to leaded petrol.
At 8, a little culture from Les.
Full fathom 5 thy father lies, of whose bones are coral made.
At 8:30, the tricky business of keeping up appearances.
I think one of us should look attractive in something tasteful and summery floral. What will you wear?
Then at 9:30, Celia's in court with a difficult client.
The bottom line is, will you please keep your mouth shut, since every time you open it, you seem to be putting a big foot in it.
Highlights for Friday night on BBC One.
Our film matinee this afternoon stars Peter Graves in a tale of conflict in the Persia of 1908. Oil and Arab land battles provide the setting for the guns and the fury at 2:10. In the interim, 2 more teams try to bluff one another in our knockout quiz in 20 minutes after today's sojourn to Ramsay Street and the Neighbours.
Neighbours, everybody needs good neighbours.